news, reviews and updates. Stay tuned and all will be revealed. Well, good morning everyone and welcome back to Piccadilly. Now, this was pretty much the scene I left you with last time, and yes, there were trains running, obviously. Nothing's gone wrong. Everything seems to be going very well in the sense that these tracks are running as they should. But this video is all about the news from all around the world of Piccadilly Model Railways, both in N gauge and in 00 gauge. So let's see what's up first. Right, next up, you'll notice I've fitted 4-point motors. So there's obviously one here, 2 in the middle, and there's one just there. Okay, now you might be saying to me, why didn't I fit underboard ones? The reason basically is because underneath the board, which I'm not going to show you, there are a number of chop blocks, and I mean large chop blocks, which I use for the positive and negative wires going through the bus, so that all the droppers go into these chop blocks, and there are about 2 or 3 in this position, because if you remember the track work, there was a lot more points, certainly down that end, and I needed to power this, the lift and all that sort of stuff. So there are a few down here, and I'm afraid there just isn't enough space to get them underboard ones in. So I've elected to go for these ones, and I will do a bit more disguising on them, but I'm afraid they are what they are. Right, and on to this section here. Now, this obviously is the station throat. And as I said, that whilst the new lines are working very, very well, there are parts of the station throat which cause stoppages, to be honest. Not so much derailments. I don't get very many derailments on this section of the track, considering all the complex point work. But what I am getting, like I said, a train would come out of Piccadilly, stop, and then go on to the next point, stop, and the next point, stop. And I generally don't show that. I just give the points a good clean with IPA and a toothbrush, and that kind of works for a little while, and then until the next time, and then we go through the procedure all over again. So what I've identified is that I'll say were a lot of insole frog points, and there are still a few left, and you probably see one just there. There are 3 just there, the medium radius ones, and there's 1 or 2 odd scattered about. But you will also notice there are an increasing number of electrofrogs, and those are now wired up. Part of the problem was because they weren't connected to frog juicers, so now they're all wired up to a frog juicer, every one of them. And I've got 2 frog juicers left, but I don't unfortunately have any more electrofrog points. So obviously those 2 will get replaced at some point, and so on and so on and so on. I did replace this one just here. Trains were coming out along here and stopping, and again it was just becoming a bit annoying when you start filming something. You get the train coming out all along here, all along, ready to start speeding down the main line, and then suddenly it stops. So as I had a brand new point in here last week, I thought it makes sense to move that one to this position and just fit it. So that's gone in very nicely. I know the soldering is a bit on the big side there, but it's a good strong joint, and I can always paint the side of that brown and you won't notice it so much. So don't worry about that too much, and once it's all been ballasted it'll be fine. But that's got a frog juicer on it now, and you can see there are 2 connection wires there as well, so it shouldn't cause too many issues. There is an insole frog here, which again will be replaced as soon as I possibly can. So anyway, let's move on to the next thing. Right, next up, onto this. Now, I'm not going to stand here and unbox it all for you, so I'll just go straight to the next clip where I'll have it in my hand. Voila. Now, just briefly, now obviously it comes in a plastic case, as all N-gauge stuff does. you've probably seen the instructions maybe on another video or something like that, but they are quite comprehensive, and there's some bits on the back there, and you get a wand which you can use to control the lights, particularly in DC. But as you can see, it is a very, very, very detailed model, and I think those handrails are all separately fitted. It's just nicely done. I mean, even the printing over the windows with the glaze, with the sliding windows there is very nicely done. You do get a detail bag, which I can't find at the moment. And in there is some etched nameplates and some other little bits and bobs. I think there's some hoses to go on the front there and that sort of thing. But I mean, look at that chassis. That is quite stunning, isn't it, really, when you think about it? So there's that end. I mean, it is just a beautiful model. There's no question about that. And this one does come with all 4 horns, which my 00 gauge one didn't. They did send them to me. But yeah, that's that. Anyway, I did promise that I would do a comparison to the big one. So I'll just get that now. So there it is. Now, to address the elephant in the room, yes, they are very different greens. It's not that they got different greens from one model to another. It's because this was a Rainbow Railways exclusive. Apparently Caroline was painted in this green, and once they'd done it, it ran around for a little while like that. I'm not sure how long, but they realised that actually it wasn't quite right, and they wanted Brunswick green, which is this one. So eventually it was repainted. But as a difference's sake, now bearing in mind that this is the N gauge version, and there are things which you could do in the 00 gauge version which you couldn't do in the N gauge one, because it's just it's just not worth the grief, to be fair. But you can see, I mean, they have done a very, very lovely representation. There's very little difference between them. Obviously, we've still got all the regular features like the fitted handrails. I suppose the biggest difference would be the interior. Get the light to shine in there. Just try and do that a little bit. I think that helps somewhat. So I did detail it up a little bit more, and I 3D printed a little buffet to go on the tables there. This is now fully featured with people at that end, that sort of thing. So I think at the end of the day, it's a lovely model to have, both in 00 gauge and in N gauge. This one at the moment is, I think, fairly readily available. Whereas this one, you might get one. Like I said, I got this from Rainbow Railways, and main reason for that is because it was £10 cheaper. And for the sake of the colour, I wasn't that fussed about it, to be honest. But, you know, you might be able to get one. I think it's a lovely model. It is a very expensive model, but there's a lot of work gone into doing it. So I must put that caveat on it. I have found this one to run faultlessly. No problems whatsoever running behind or being pushed by the 37. This one, I have had issues on second radius curves. It did try and ride up the track a little bit, so I had to do some slight modifications to it to allow the bogies to turn that little bit more. And it basically there's parts of the chassis in there. You might be able to make it out. I had to sort of grind it down a little bit so that the flange of the wheel could pass over it like that, whereas before it was stopping kind of there really, and it wasn't allowing the bogie to travel that extra distance it needs to get around the tighter corners. So I'm glad I've done that, because it runs beautifully on the 00 gauge layout now. Right, and now onto the DCC fitting. You'll notice that all the lights are on at both ends, and that you can run it like that. It's just got a blanking plate inside. But to get it running properly on DCC, you'll need to fit an X18 decoder. Now, I have one here. I have no idea what that is. I've had it for a little while. I'm guessing it's a dapole, but I don't know. Now, looking at the instructions, DCC lighting. Now, it then goes on to say, after you've read that first bit, to fit your preferred next 18 decoder, ease out the lower edges of the body shell and gently lever off, taking care not to damage the bogies or the interior moulding, or the underframe detail, sorry. If necessary, the PCB can be unclipped from the interior moulding and lifted to access the socket. Right, so let's have a go. Right, so I've got a load of shims. Now, this is a raft from the 3D printing on the FDM printers, but you can use any piece of plastic card or anything like that. So anything will do. So I'm just going to ease it up one side. And I've just got my fingernail underneath there. So hopefully I can pop that in and ease it down slightly. And the other side at the same point, being careful where I sort of lever. Ah, there we go. That's come off reasonably quick. Well, as long as that bit comes out. And will that come off? Yes, it will. Now, noticing which way round I've got it. So I'm trying to identify that there's two windows there. Right, so the two windows go down by the driver's cab where the brown seat is, and the three windows go up by this style of seating here. Now, if you've got the 00 gauge model, you'll realise that it's obviously quite different to the 00 gauge model in the sense that all that is painted up. But I'll be honest that I'm not disappointed with that because it's N gauge. The kitchen's nicely done. That sort of thing. So yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. And as you can see, there's the blanking plate just there, and the decoder socket. Interesting. So how does that come off? Let's go back to the instructions. And it says, if necessary, it can be unclipped. So this will clip on. Yes. Yes, it does. And as you can see there is a plug, which is very handy. And so there's some steps come off. You would have to happen, wouldn't it? And they're there. Right, so obviously that's got to be glued back on. It's the danger with these models, isn't it? So there's the blanking plate. I mean, so many people have said it. As a market, we've kind of insisted on more detail, but it does come at a price. But that has gone on quite easily, I have to say. Now, being careful where I hold it again. And then the plug just pushes back in there. I have to say that is a very, very good solution. Now that's back on. And now I think what would be wise now is to test it before I go any further. So let's get a better view. Welcome back. Now you'll notice I've got the coach on the test track along with the Class 37. I've decided to use the large logo one, even though it's not the correct locomotive. It'll just have to do, I'm afraid. Now, to get that to number 51, that has got to be on the track at the same time. So I'm going to type in 51, like that. And then I can set that CV. which will change the 37 to also number 51. Oops. But I don't want that. So I'm now going to take the coach off, put the 37 back on, and reprogram the 37 to 27, which was the code or the address I had that before. Right, as a bit of a final verdict then, I think it's an absolutely gorgeous coach. The detail for N-gauge is phenomenal. You've seen that chassis. Another thing I like is that the lights are fully controllable with this one. So you probably will have noticed that on the 00 gauge one, that if I want tail lights on Caroline and the 37 is pulling, the only way I can do it is to have the white lights on at the front as well. Now, on the N-gauge version, I can have the white lights on, or I can have the red lights on, or I can have both on. So you can technically have red lights on at both ends, white lights on at both ends. So it is a lot more controllable. Now, I put this on a consist on the Z21, and I had to manually configure the lights for that, which isn't a massive issue, I have to be honest, and I'd rather do that than have the issue of the white lights coming on in between the locomotive and the coach. But, you know, it could be a Z21 thing that it didn't configure the lights to switch with the locomotive at the same time. I don't know. I don't want to say that's a bad against Revolution trains, because I'll be honest, I think they've done a fantastic job with this. Right, let's move on. Right, some other news rounds the Piccadilly Model Railway's world, if you like. This, I think it's a B2 Peckett, 6 wheels, obviously. And you might remember this on the 00 gauge layout a year, maybe a little bit more than that. And it died. And it's been sitting there waiting for me to look at it. And a few weeks ago, I decided actually I was just going to completely rewire it, put in a 6-pin harness, and do it that way, because I thought the wiring had it, to be honest. But actually, it turned out to be the motor. The windings are all coming undone, and that's basically the end of it, to be honest with you. So I got onto Peter Spares, and apparently they are now obsolete. They do not stock them anymore. And so I'm going to do very, very well to find one anywhere. It's X7098, apparently, the exact model that I need for this. But alternatively, I've got 2 options. Or 3 options, I should say. Peter Spares did say that they've got a motor kit, which could be fitted into this, and that would work, but it is quite expensive, I'll be honest, for what it is. The option, I could just get my own motor from somewhere, similar sort of size, fit the worm drive on it, and 3D print my own bracket for it. That is probably the most likely option. Or the third option, which I don't really like, is to put it back on the layout, maybe with some couplings either end, and have something else pull it round, because you can see the wheels turn quite freely. So there's my 3 options. Just sort of bring you up to date with that. Nothing's likely to happen on it at the moment. I've got other financial priorities. So, you know, it can sit in the siding for a bit longer, and it's not doing any harm to anybody. Right, let's move on. And on to Locomotion number 1. Now, I'm not going to do a full-blown review on this. There are so many people done those, and good quality reviews out there. So may I suggest, if you're really interested in one of those, go into YouTube and type in Locomotion number 1, Hornby Locomotion number 1, and you will find a whole myriad of different reviews coming up from varying people. And what I will give you, though, is some basic thoughts that I've had about this. I do love it. I think it's an absolutely fantastic model. And I think Hornby getting the mechanism working in the way they have is mind-blowing. I did say to one friend, it's like watching fish, because I just find it so relaxing to see all that going on, and yet it's so smooth in what it is. Now, it does need a stay alive, as you can probably appreciate. It stops not at every opportunity, but quite a lot of them. So a stay alive, I think, in this is a must, but fitting it is an absolute nightmare. I'm not going to lie to you. The decoder is in the tender, as you know perhaps, and it's an X18. And the problem being is because you can't see what you're doing, and it's just an empty box, if you like, and the decoder is pretty much the right width to the box. There's no wiggle room at all. It goes in easily, and I used an AE decoder, one's that DCC Concept cell, and I got the plug-in Stay Alive that goes with it. And I did what Graham Falston did and take the speaker out. So I unsoldered the speaker, and there's an enclosure inside there which literally just comes out, and so you're left with an empty box. I then put the Stay Alives into that box, but then it's all the wiring that goes around with it and the little control module that's with that. So that sat directly underneath. But then as soon as you think you've got the decoder in, you start pressing everything back into place and the decoder comes out. And I must have put it in 20, 30, 40 times. I don't know. I struck lucky on this particular occasion, and once I got it on and it worked again, I was forever testing it on the test track, and finally I managed to get it working. It's not very strong, as you can see. I've got 6 children wagons and it can just about cope with that. And I wouldn't say I've got any inclines on this layout, but it struggled. If the track even appears to go up by ½ millimetre, this starts wheel slipping and struggling. I would have thought, to be honest, it would have a little bit more capability than that, but you know, 6 children's is the maximum I can actually pull with this. So anyway, let's set it off, and you can just see. Oops, won't get it going the right way, of course. And stop. Let's try that one again, shall we? And as you can see, the Stay Alive really helps. I just think that is so impressive. It really is. As it goes through the tunnel. Right, I'll just give you a brief running session with this one. So there it is. I've tried to keep it going as fairly slow as I can. And I think the Stay Alive and being on DCC is really helping that. That's probably not far off scale speed for this, to be honest. And just down in the foreground here, 37 pulling Caroline, as we've mentioned before. So a bit of a running treat there for you. Caroline's coming past. But, you know, incidentally, I did eventually manage to get Rocket working. I rewired it completely, put a Stay Alive in it, ran beautifully, and then all of a sudden, short. And I'm guessing the decoder's packed up, but I haven't had time to look at it yet. Anyway, as that disappears into the tunnel, right, welcome back. Now, I've got the back scenes back in, obviously, as you can see. This is a separate removable unit. And I thought I'd put it back in just to get an idea of what I need to do with it. And as you can see, these are the 2 main lines, the inside main lines. They're no issue, as they never have been. But you can also see 13 or 14 and 13 platform lines there, and obviously that needs some significant work. So I'm going to have a think about what to do. Chances are, to match what's going to happen this side, I'll probably cut those square down there and put some of that girder running all along, and probably cut, well, maybe to there, I may move this, shunt that bit along a bit. So remove this section and then just push it over a tad further. I'll be honest with you, this is my first look, so I don't actually know at the moment. But, you know, it's whatever's, you know, we can sort this out, or I can sort it out. It's not a big issue. Bit by bit, by bit by bit. For the time being, I'll take that bit off, so you can see what that looks like at the moment. And yes, it is a complete site, but it means I can have trains running in and out. And obviously you can see part of the issue is I've got to have a big gap running through there for the canopy to sit inside. But again, like I said, I'll sort it out. It won't be a big issue. All right, I'll catch you later. Now, before I forget, somebody made a comment with regard to colours. Now, I didn't realise at the time what they were referring to, but coming up to the layout room now, I can see there is a magenta, cyan and yellow stripe running over there. And as I look around the room, I can see them in different places as well. Now, that is caused by these two LED lights just there. And they are made up from magenta, yellow and cyan LEDs inside there. And if you know the science, it's combined of the three makes a white light. And I think they have made a significant difference to the amount of light that is on the layout. I did have some more garden style lights in here before, but I couldn't find them. I think they must have just become obsolete. Those particular ones died, and I had to get rid of them. But, you know, I might add to them, but I'm certainly not going to be getting rid of them, I'm afraid. So what have I done about it then? Well, as you can see in that back corner now, I've taken down the coat that was there that had a stripe coming over the back seam, so that's now gone. I've also angled up that light just there and put some tape around the bottom of it. So hopefully, well, that has eliminated that sort of rainbow stripe there. But it has left that back corner a little bit more pinky. I'll be honest with you, I'm not worried about that too much. The main light is on the station and it kind of adds depth into the distance to make it look, to make the focal point the station and not necessarily the back scene. So I'm not so fussed about that. But you may still see odd little bits of colours here and there. They're still down the bottom of the carriage shed and a little bit on the back scene at that point just there. But at the end of the day, there's not a massive amount I can do about that, I'm afraid. I am planning on putting up another light on that beam up there somewhere at some point, which may help purely to light up the back a bit more, because I think that is still a little bit dull, particularly when I'm working on that back area. But at the end of the day, I hope it doesn't bother your viewing too much, but if it does and you feel you can't watch anymore, well, you have to make that decision, I'm afraid. I'm not getting rid of these lights at the moment. Okay, right, so let's move on. Well, there it is. You can see I've got 4 trains running. There's a Pendolino there and the 185. Coming down this side, we have a railhead treatment train, and somewhere is 37 with Caroline, which is just there. As you could probably make that one out, just going around the back corner. Now, I do hope you've enjoyed this video. There's been lots of news and reviews from all around the world of Piccadilly Model Railways, and you know, I will be carrying on with this layout very, very shortly. I don't know when that will be. Like I said, it depends on how I feel after school, but I do want to get to this area sorted out very, very quickly, and the tunnel that side and whatever's going to happen this side, to get that sorted, get that scenery back on, to get that layout, get that side of the layout looking a lot more complete. But anyway, in the meantime, I will bid you farewell, and I hope to see you again very, very soon here on Piccadilly Model Railways. Now, you take care of yourself, and I'll see you really soon. Take care now, and bye-bye.